Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A fine day today, is it not? My name is Mark Twain. Almost, right? I have been invited here today by a fine young man. I think he goes by the title of Vice President of Technology. Now, I know very little about technology myself, but I do know a bit about presidents and vice presidents, and would love to have a conversation this morning about politics. However, that's not my mission today. I understand that you folks are about to embark on a wonderful adventure. As you know, if you've read a couple of my books over the years, you know that I enjoy a good adventure. And I've been explained to me that y'all are replacing something called an AIS. Now, I have no clue what AIS stands for. Now, I might speculate that it could stand for, let's say, absolutely something, absolutely interesting stuff. Obviously, that must be true, for you very nice people have spent, taken out of your very busy schedule today to come here and actually hear about it. And by a show of hands, how many here have been at this illustrious institution, Pasadena City College, for at least 25 years? Oh my, excellent, excellent. Well, it's my understanding, as it has been explained to me, that your current SIS, or AIS, I'll get these acronyms correct. I believe you call it affectionately the Santa Rosa system. Not sure what you're going to call the new one, but it obviously is very interesting stuff. So part of what my job here is today is I have the distinct pleasure of introducing to you your partner through this wonderful adventure, Ellucian. These fine folks are going to explain this morning that how this journey is going to go and what you're going to experience along the way in terms of capabilities and functions. It'll be very exciting stuff. So with that very brief introduction, all I have to say are, banner days are here. I thank you, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege, an honor to visit with you this morning.
We had to pay big bucks to get him out of the grave, so. My name's Rick Lagoza, and I've been with Ellucian for 32 years, and I feel like I've been with PCC for at least 7 years, after going to your board meetings for 5 years anyway. I'm going to have our folks introduce themselves quickly and what their role is in the project. Some of them are here just occasionally when they're needed, and others are here full-time permanent until we're all in production. So I'm going to start with Xavier back here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Xavier Rubio. I'm the Regional Delivery Director. I'll be here to support the project team here. I'll be coming in and out We are very excited and happy to take on this project. We put together the best of the teams for this project here, so looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
My name is Rowan Garcia. I'll be the technical architect for this project, and basically that's a technical resource that crosses different functional areas and also the support team.
Greetings, I'm Antonio Trebizowski, and I'm here to support the student portion of the project, which will include, well, we'll see what it will include in just a bit.
My name is Molly Delgado, and I'll be doing the financial aid.
Good morning, I'm Mike Altus. I'm the Director of Managed Services for the Western United States.
Good morning, I am Mickey Hughes, and I'm here to work with the finance people on the finance portion of the project.
Good morning, I'm Ted Foss. I'm the resident project manager for Ellucian. Unlike Rick, I've only been with the company 31 years. The upside of all this is I live only 8 miles away. I live in Monrovia. So as a project manager, it's a refreshing experience for me to be able to drive to work and not have to get on a plane and do it. So I'm down in LL 145. Feel free to stop by and say hello anytime you want. I will be here continuously, non-stop, continuous performances for the next 16, 18 months.
Hi, my name's Wendy Davis. I'm just here for today, unless you need me for something. I'll be doing the demo. Can you come here for a second, Ted? I've known Ted for 15 years. We used to work together. And today's Ted's birthday. So now that
The 30 seconds cost the college $350.
And he gets reminded about that all the time. Quick overview of the system. So who is Ellucian? We've been around since '68. The first of the student systems for California Community College was back in '78, I believe it was, and it was over in San Diego, Community College District. So we've been serving the community college districts for a long time. We have 2,300 institutions we serve. 13 million students at any given time are registering with our systems around the world. In California, a number that your board loves to see, which is 1.175 million FTES, how you all get funded per year. And then lastly, 82% of the California community colleges use one of our systems. Of the systems we're implementing here, 37% of the California community colleges use the Banner product that we'll be implementing here, and we can only hope the other ones switch over to Banner as well. So what's Banner? Banner is basically, first of all, a way to get into information system. You can get into either a smartphone, a tablet, like an iPad that we're giving away, or your laptop. You can work from the office, you can work from home, it doesn't really matter. And it goes against something called the Luminous Portal. And that's kind of the communication hub for everybody within the institution. Then lastly, we have a totally integrated system of student system, finance, financial aid, human resources, finance, and advancement. One database, one place that captures things like addresses, phone numbers, one place that captures things like accounts receivable, student information, no duplicate data entry. And I guess that's the important thing. By the way, this whole slide or PowerPoint presentation will be posted on the web. You don't have to take notes. It'll be posted in one of our project sites. So quickly, there's products that have been proposed that we're implementing that cross all areas. The biggest one is the portal. Everyone will see the portal, no matter if you're a student, wannabe student, somebody in the community that's interested in the institution, a faculty member, an employee, An administrator, the system is smart enough to know your role within the institution and actually show you content based on that role. So if you're a student who happens to be an employee as well, you'll see some employee things and student things on your portal. And we'll be spending a lot of time on the portal throughout the demo portion today. Document management, this is the first time the institution will be implementing a document management system that goes across all areas of the institution, completely integrated with the administrative system. So not just information, data, but also documents and other media, sound bites, video bites, things like that. Rave alert, after some of the problems we've seen in the past few years, emergency communication to students and faculty and staff, it's important. We're implementing mobile security so that we can tell people what's happening in a heartbeat. It's sad that we have to do that, but it's the real world today. Workflow is something you'll hear an awful lot about. It's a way of tying things together, processes together, so you don't have to walk around calling people, visiting with people to get things done. It's tying processes together in an automated fashion. Mobile communication, one of the exciting things we did last year, or year before last, was create a mobile toolkit that is open source that is free to everyone. It's free to non-clients too. And what happens, the only thing we do is we ask our clients to share all their mobile apps with everybody else. So we have a community where everybody shares their products, their favorite mobile apps with other institutions. Some of them are wild. Some of them are so interesting, I would have never thought about it. You know, following your bus that you want to take in the morning and where it is on your map and where you are on campus to catch the next map, you know, that's things I did expect. Over in the university sector, watching your dryer to see when your dryer stops so you can pick up your clothes, I never would have thought of that. But those are the kinds of things that people are doing. We did one at Coast Community College District, and I'll move ahead quickly, where we showed all the open parking spaces. We had it up for only one day and had to take it offline. You figured it out, I didn't. So we had, there was one spot near, in a very popular parking space that opened up, and 50 cars tried to get into that one spot all at one time. So that was a disaster. So lessons learned. Self-service, we're going to talk a lot about self-service. That's probably the way 95% of the folks that are tied to PCC will be looking at information. And lastly, the self-service reporting is something that's key, that's California specific. So what we did is we took a data mart and made it California Community College specific. So that information you normally look at as part of your business is also part of an easy to use reporting mechanism. And when we say self-service, we really mean it. It's drop and drag stuff. Even Ted will attest to this, even I can do it. So, student system, Antonio.
Has a lot of components in it, some of which are in very divergent databases right now. So it's going to cover the course bulletin, the course bulletin, all your MCF files. That it'll also contain the entire schedule of classes, which will be able to be searched for online. You'll also be able to track the sort of needs and goals and services that are offered to the students, so both from the counseling and advising offices and also with disabled students and the other areas where counselors are stationed. It also helps to manage the faculty load, which has an interface directly into the HR component of the system, so that basically the schedule helps to drive the faculty load data towards the HR area, sort of the whole idea of enter the data one time and then let the data do its thing across the whole database. Managing the rooms, it also will interface with Scheduler Resource 25. There's also, of course, the accounts receivables components so that the students can view their bills online, make payments online. Their BOGs, if they have them, will post automatically at the time that they register, so there won't be a question about that. They'll be able to view their financial aid information as well. Molly will speak to that in just a little bit. And then, of course, viewing their grades, a whole lot of components to facilitate the faculty in tracking the students who need special attention because they're at risk, being able to push alerts out along those lines. the outreach and the processing of CCC Apply applications, all of this all in one database, so that as soon as the information comes in, the person record already exists, and communications can start being sent out to those individuals. Along with the general student area, I kind of mentioned the DSPS office already, but there's also places for EOP&S, Mesa, Puente, Ujima, honors program, different clubs and activities, tracking athletics. All of that information, since it's in one database, can then be used to help coordinate priority registration, ensuring that athletes and international students don't fall below full time during registration activities. And then, of course, all of that basically gets lumped into the self-service component online, which, as Rick already said, is where the 95% of your community, most of the faculty and most of the students, will also be accessing the information through the web. There's also additional tools. The relationship management tool facilitates the communication, especially for the at-risk individuals, for student retention, and also for the outreach individuals. And of course, DegreeWorks with its TREC component, which is basically the ed plan. Students will be able to view their ed plans online. Counselors will be able to store their notes in the ed plan, and those notes can be designated as viewable or not viewable to the student or to other counselors. That also then helps to feed into the schedule of classes, because if we have all these students with ed plans and X number of students need this course, now we know we need to offer more sections of that course to meet the demand, since we have those many students who need to fulfill that for their ed plan. So all of it is integrated. It all ties together. And of course, there's also some components for tracking the international students and reporting that international student information to the federal government and agencies that require that data. So all one big system, lots of student stuff. Lucky me, I get to help you do all of that. And now I'll pass it off to my colleague, Molly.
I am also local. I live in Ontario. So I am also one of your local folks. I'll be working on the project. Financial aid, we will be able to take all that information that Antonio and the students people will be putting in the system, and we were able to instantaneously see it in financial aid. So the moment a student withdraws, we'll be able to pull that information in and be able to back out their aid. We follow all, and we have within Banner all of the federal regulations, all of the state regulations. We'll also be able to coordinate all of the foundation scholarships that you have, either restricted or unrestricted. We will be able to, and that is all kept up by Ellucian. You won't have to change anything other than institutional rules. So if you want to pull in that we're only going to give this funding to scholarship or whatever this funding is to nursing majors, we can pull it out of the student system and automatically put that in our rules and be able to limit or control who gets what funding. We will be using self-service extensively, where a student will be seeing all of the documents that they must submit, and we also have a tie-in with the IRS. So the IRS will instantaneously, when we load our records in, be able to say this doesn't match. So we automatically will be able to make changes and pull up the IRS documentation. In the state, we'll be able to handle the BOGs and the Cal grants. Now, some of you aren't financial aid, so you're saying, what in the world is she talking about? But they're the state funding that are so important to students. We also will be able to, in the self-service, the student will be able to online accept their awards. So they can automatically do all of that. It'll update Banner. We'll automatically be able to send out all of the electronic applications to the government, and your reimbursements will drop down to less than 24 hours. So the millions of dollars that you're giving out in loans will automatically come back in quicker than you've ever seen it. So And then also in self-service, they'll be able to see their academic history and all of the things that will keep them on track for financial aid. Okay? I don't know who's next. Is it Mr. Mickey?
Hi, my name is Mickey Hughes, and the part that I'm working with you on is the finance system. Unlike student-facing people, I realize this is not as exotic as that. This is the back office stuff, the stuff that must get done. We'll work on establishing a general ledger, something that's appropriate for the Pasadena City College itself. Once that's established, defined, we'll look at the reporting that's necessary to come out of that and back in basically to that general ledger. This system also will track fixed assets. Any of the fixed assets that are owned by the college will be tracked in this. This thing will enable you to, your financial people to run depreciation, track depreciation, the sale, disposal of these fixed assets through the entire life of that asset. Purchasing and receiving. We've already chatted a bit with Mark about some of the procurement efforts, and the finance system supports that, from the online requisition that basically all of you will be doing, keying in when you need something, when you need to purchase something. We'll be utilizing what's called finance self-service. You'll actually get in there and begin keying in what it is you wish to buy. And Banner, this system is going to track your budget to ensure you have the budget to support that effort, that attempted purchase that you have. Do you have the authority to spend against that particular funding source? It's not going to let you reach over into someone else's budget and grab their money. So there'll be security in place, and that'll keep you in the area that you're supposed to be. Likewise, keep people out of your area. And so the security on that will be set up so that specific users can have the proper authority. Accounts payable. That's the effort. Once we've gone out, bought something, it's come in, it's been received, properly accounted for in that manner. Obviously, the vendor wants to be paid. And so Banner supports the accounts payable effort that allows us to pay our vendors. There's an accounts receivable component of finance as well. Antonio mentioned it as far as the students being able to track what the student owes the college. But occasionally the college has receivables that are not student-based. If you lease a building for a company to have a meeting or things of that sort, we will try to discover all of those miscellaneous type receivable activities that go on, and that has a place likewise in the system so that we can track that, you can age that, you can keep a handle on how much is owed to the university, how stale are those receivables and that type of thing. There's a stores inventory module in Banner. Whether you use that or not, Mark, we've chatted with you about that. That may or may not be something we'll do, but we have it if you need it. And I, like some of the others, they're dropping their years. I've been with the company 25 years, and I actually installed the first, my client was the first one to use the stores inventory module years ago when it was created. So I know a little bit about it from way back then. Budget development and position control, a big portion of what goes on at the college, since labor costs are such a large portion of this. And Banner's finance doesn't work independently. It works very closely with our human resource people to establish positions, and so you can control positions and the salaries that these people are making, the fringe benefits that they're earning, and that feeds into your budget development module very, very carefully. Research accounting, that's a fancy word for grants. What kind of grants do we get from federal agencies, from state agencies, other local or private sources to handle specific needs that we have, special revenue type things. Banner tracks that, and that module is also used for, is a very good use as capital projects. So the buildings that go on, we can track those, all the Prop 39 stuff that takes place. Endowment management, Banner can track the endowments that the college has, the earnings on those endowments, the gifts, the new endowments that come along, we can track that. And again, finance self-service, that's where you in this room can actually go out and check your budget, check your what you need to approve, those types of things like that. You're not on the phone calling somebody in the finance office saying, what's the status of this, what's the status of that? You've actually got, through the finance self-service, the ability to track what's important to you. Faculty effort reporting, again, with the co-joined with the human resource section of Banner. You'll see that in a few minutes. Wendy will be touching upon that. We do faculty effort reporting. It's becoming more and more important in the area of our grants that the faculty effort reporting not be just some afterthought, but the federal agencies are requiring more and more effort on that. And then finally, a fairly new feature we have, Banner Travel and Expense Management, that allows the college to track dispersed monies and to track what's owed the college due to travel. And that's Banner Finance. We've got that to look forward to, and I do look forward to do it. Been doing it 25 years, and I love my work. So, okay, who's next here?
Thanks, Mickey. I'm representing just the HR piece. That you have a great consultant assigned. Her name is Julie. She, along with the other team of consultants, they've all worked together on the California Community Colleges. And in the area of human resources, California is unique. You have unique regulations that are only indigenous to California, issues such as STRS and PERS. So Julie is well qualified to handle all of that and really looks forward to working with you on that. Of course, things that will impact everyone in this room, the way that paychecks are disseminated, the way that time perhaps gets entered in the system, the way that you can view your benefits online. And this was passed around to everyone as you came into the room. The college has made a sizable investment in something called talent management. And what that is designed to do is coordinate the efforts of every single one of you in this room and make sure that you're getting the proper training that you need. That training can be in-person training, it can be online training, it can be a hybrid of that, creating employee transcripts, pushing out training so that you'll overtly know that that needs to occur. Also, a utility whereby your direct manager can do performance reviews. There can be 360-degree performance reviews. So really a very powerful system. And that probably will come up a little bit sooner, pardon me, than the payroll benefit system itself. So something for you all to look forward to, a pretty big investment by the college and you folks, the employees.
Andy, in order to, I was sitting there counting bullets. I don't know if you were counting bullets, but there were about 60 bullets in all those slides. Each of those represents a functional area of the product. But behind those bullets, there is a lot of thinking and a lot of work. First of all, the systems are made by Ellucian, but they are owned by the college. This is not an Ellucian project. It, for the most part, is not even an ITS project because of the way this system is designed and configured. There are a lot of decisions that have to be made that make the system work the way your business rules and your policies say they should work. So this is not like installing, and I've used this expression before, this is not like going out and buying a copy of Microsoft Office and putting a CD or downloading it and letting it run and putting a few rules and configuration in and then start working away. This is a very, very complex integrated system, and it needs to be put in carefully, and a lot of decisions need to be made along the way. And those decisions are usually made by what we call a steering committee. That steering committee or implementation team at PCC is called ATAC, Administrative, help me out, Wayne, Administrative Technology and Advising Committee. Somebody asked if the short word for that was ATTAC. I would prefer to put the accent on the first syllable and call it ATAC, but ATTAC is just as well. Okay. You can see that in the slide, if you can see the slide, that there are analogous areas under ATAC that pretty much match the functionality of the systems that we're implementing. Human resources, finance, business. Some are overarching, decisions on security, decisions on what the portal is going to look like, institutional research reporting, MIS reporting, 320, 311 reporting. These are all parts of the ATAC committee. There are representatives, as you can see, from various parts of the college representing the stake that they have in this system. That group meets on a weekly basis, at least for the near future. First of all, setting out the structure of the project, how the project is going to be communicated, how the project is going to handle risk, how the project is going to communicate with the outside world, so forth and so on. So you know that this ATAC committee is a strong voice representing your interests in how the system is implemented. I'm sure you can all read that. The project timeline, I'm just going to give you the timeline's greatest hits. First of all, pay attention to the colors, if you will. The color red means we're gathering requirements. We're going out and visiting with your offices and learning your business rules. The second color, which is sort of a mustard color, is design. Taking what we find and configuring our systems so that they work the way you've described to us. Okay? In some cases, if the way you've described to us are not best practice, we're going to address that and maybe bring you up to speed in the way other community colleges are working, or just taking advantage of technology in a way that you want to make the systems work smarter and better for you. The green is where we test out and make sure that everything that you've said is working in the system as prescribed. Green also stands for training, okay, meaning that we have to teach you how to use the system, how to navigate through the system, how to get information out of the system. And then finally, the purple boxes are where we go live. So here are the dates that you probably want to know about. Okay, right now, we are gathering requirements. Also, from what I'm told, our integration architect was here until the wee hours last night because the hardware that this system is going to run on, at least for testing purposes, was just delivered. And he is busy loading the databases, loading the operating system, and configuring the system along with a lot of the IT staff. So they're already very busy creating our environment. Once that environment exists, we'll start configuration. Also, getting the data from where it is to where it has to be. Data migration is a huge part of this project. Getting names, addresses, grades, academic history, all of those things from your old systems into the new system. So after all those things, then we'll teach you how to use the system, and then we'll go live. Here are the dates that you want to pay attention to. In the first week of May, okay, we will go live with Banner Student for registration for the fall. Also going live at the same time, maybe a little bit ahead of that, will be Relationship Management. Also going live at that point will be DegreeWorks, which is where ed plans are stored. And also going live at that point will be Financial Aid and a little bit of the reporting engine to support student reporting and financial aid reporting. Finance goes live July 1. Human Resources goes live at the end of December of 2013. This is a very ambitious schedule. a very, very ambitious schedule with a lot of work up front. And that's why many of us are living here with you, because we're not flying in and out and just saying how you're doing. We're going to roll up our sleeves and make this work. No matter what it takes, we'll help you out to do it. Okay. So I think rather than walking you through all these different go-live dates, those are the ones that I want you to remember. Of course, preceding registration, you need a schedule of classes. And we're already working with David on getting the schedule of classes ready in Banner. So if you have any questions specific to when things are happening, I already gave you my address, 145 in the LL building. Come and stop by and find out. So I'm going to turn over the rest of today to the fun part, which is where Wendy is going to sort of replicate what a day in the life of an institution using our systems, your system, is going to look like.
Thank you, Ted. Well, I don't know about you, but that's some exciting stuff going on here, definitely. Just a little bit about me to give you a frame of reference, because I tend to talk a lot about myself during, this sounds terrible, but I'm a learner myself. I'm a full-time student at the University of Utah. I happen to live in Salt Lake County in Utah. I've also been an adjunct faculty member in the California Community College, Feather River College, which is a very small community college in Quincy, California. Some of the sweetest people that I know. They honored me by asking me to teach one of their classes for them, and I did that. It was a hybrid class. It was part in person and part online. So I've also used an online learning system. I have several of them over the course of my many years in education. I'm a user of Canvas at the University of Utah. I know that you use Canvas. I happen to love Canvas. I don't know if you like it as much as I do as a learner. I found it very easy to use. I've also been a TA who's used Canvas. So I don't just sell software or demonstrate software. I also walk the walk as a learner. In fact, I just had class last night, and I'll actually be missing class tomorrow. And my 14-year-old says, "Don't you get in trouble when you miss class?" And my husband said, "It's a little different in college. She actually pays the teacher to go there." And so she just doesn't have that concept yet. But just wanted to frame a couple of different scenarios for you. We spent many, many days here demonstrating our software in tremendous detail. And as you go through the course of the next year and even ongoing, I want you to keep this big picture in mind. Keep the end game in mind, because you'll be in the throes of it and you'll be talking about a 5-digit code in finance, and you'll like this, and talking about the guts of the registration system and how Boggs and whatever happens over there in financial aid, they do that. But remember the end game, okay? So for our students, this is the end game that we're looking for. You have invested, your college has invested in a portal, which is a gateway for all student services. Really exciting. Heavy hits on the portal, especially during the beginning of term, the middle of term, and the end of term. High peak areas for the students when they're looking for classes and checking their grades. And these types of communities will be deployed to your learners. These will be branded for PCC. They'll have your colors, they'll have your logos, and your content. This is the best of Banner. All right, so these core systems, but also the best of web and what Web 2.0 has to offer today. So considering things like online communities and integrated technologies. I mean, there are technologies I could say today, Facebook and Twitter and Flickr and Instagram, things that don't even exist yet today that might exist 18 months from now. So it's imperative that you have this groundwork and this structure that'll continue to ebb and flow as new technologies are added. And of course, the all-important mobile. Years ago, even just a couple of years ago, I mean, we all remember before the iPhone existed, right? Before there's an app for that was part of our common vernacular. So just a couple of things I wanted to point out here. Of course, your students are going to be able to access their grades, access online registration. We also do have a concept of a community ed catalog that will be outside of a secured login. So all of your continuing ed learners, perhaps your adult learners, your workforce development learners who are looking for very targeted and specific training, but don't necessarily go through the the detailed process of enrolling, right? They want to look for classes, put it in a shopping cart, pay for it all online, maybe send that to their company to pay for that. All of that exists as well. Additionally, learners will access their course through this as they experience their learning environment. So whether Canvas is fully deploying online courses, or it's a hybrid methodology, or it's supporting the content of courses, where faculty members put their syllabi up and put their course readings up, and students upload assignments into the Dropbox there, whatever that happens to be, this is the place where they will go. The whole concept is that your students become accustomed to this particular space as their record of truth. So for example, as Molly was talking about, a student will be able to come out and see all of their financial aid that has been awarded to them, also accept that financial aid, and partially decline it if they, for whatever reason, would want to. Maybe they're not interested in a work-study job and they decline that part, or they wanted to take a little bit smaller of a loan. They can do things like that. But to really empower your learners with the knowledge that they need to succeed in a course, to succeed in their program, to make sure they're matriculated, to make sure they're on the path to completion. Right, so that's kind of one view of the world. The other view of the world, or I guess there are multiple views of the world, is how can we as faculty and staff members and employees of the institution support student success? That's really why we're all here, right? Without our learners, we wouldn't be here. And there are a variety of ways we can do that. So let me explore a couple of those from a faculty perspective. And then we'll turn it a little bit and we'll take a look at how all of us should be content contributors. Every interaction that a learner has with somebody at this institution matters. It really, really does. I'll tell you a story. I happened to go to school a long time ago, and I was privileged to go to a four-year school and live in the dorms, and I absolutely love that. And I am a little ashamed to say that I would schedule my classes around the soap opera All My Children, which just ended this year. And okay, so just to kind of, there in the 80s, there weren't like good, you couldn't VCR, there was no DVR, and there was no reruns, and there was 3 channels, and there were, you know, it was, if you didn't watch the show then, you never saw it again. So I would rush and eat lunch, and then I would come in, and okay, and by the way, we had a TV lounge. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There were not TVs in every room, there was no cable, there was one TV in the whole building, and it was chained to the wall. And so me and the lady who happened to be in charge of cleaning that particular building, she would bring her luncheon and I would bring my luncheon and we would eat. And for 4 years, we watched All My Children together. And I went back to the university recently, and I saw this woman. I said, "I know you." She said, "All My Children." I said, "Yes." And we hugged, and I, you know, was like, "How are you?" She says, "I'm retiring next year." And I know that sounds silly, but I bonded with that woman. Everybody that you meet matters, okay? And if we think that doesn't, we need to change our mindset about that a little bit. So it's really a collaborative effort here. Some of the most important relationships that your students will have will be with their faculty members. They trust them, they're the experts, they depend on them for their knowledge and their grades. They will come back to them for letters of recommendation. Okay, so it's a very powerful relationship. So what we have here are some tools for our faculty members as well. So here you'll see things like a faculty dashboard where I am able to see all of the sections that I'm teaching, and I can drill down and I can see here all of my learners. I can click here and see my class list and have single-click access to know who's in my class. And I can open up this little box here. I can get a little bit more real estate and see not only my class list, but to be able to drill down into more detailed level so that I can perhaps advise that student, know what's going on in their academic career. So it's imperative that we have these kind of tools that assist our faculty members in meeting the students' need. We have a newer feature in our system that you'll be able to take advantage of, something called faculty feedback. One of the things that I've noticed as I travel across the country is the element of student success and student persistence. And indeed, funding models are changing in various states. So it's classic funding model that we are funded by FTE with a cap, right? Certain states have changed, are starting to change that funding model based on actually academic success and persistence. Not just what is our head count, but are we helping these individuals succeed? So partners like Ellucian are having to say, okay, how do we manage that? What does that mean? Okay, so one of the ways that we've come up with to help manage that based on feedback from folks like you is being able to provide faculty feedback. So how does a learner know how they're doing? All right, so grades is one element. It's a measurable and quantifiable element, but it's not the only way that we can provide feedback. What if I notice that something's going on with a learner and I need to refer that person to the tutoring center, or I need to make sure that everybody who touches that student record knows what's going on with that learner? So there's a concept here called faculty feedback, where I'm asked to provide feedback between a certain date. You can require feedback on certain students, and I use that term very loosely, require, so that certain students can be monitored. So I can give estimated grades. Maybe there's not something that has been turned in for an assignment that is compensable, but perhaps I need to make a comment because someone's turning in work late, they're not showing up for class, or maybe even provide an independent comment. They confided in me that their parents are struggling with finding employment and they're really concerned about being able to pay for college, okay? All of those things matter. Those early faculty feedback elements then go into a place where people can take that information and work on that, almost like in case management. So we'll see that in a moment. But consider this, not just grades, but other types of early intervention and early faculty feedback to make sure that our students succeed. Another thing that we have to offer that the college is actually still considering here is something called a course signals. And course signals is a way to indicate to a learner, based on who you are and what we know about you in the system, right? Based on how you're performing in your course, how likely are you to succeed in this course based on what you're doing now? And I thought about this, I thought, who doesn't know how they're doing in a course, you know? And then I thought, oh, I know, my teenagers, right? So you can call me Velcro parent, you can call me helicopter parent. I like to call me a parent who holds my kids accountable, because my kids don't get to go out on Friday or Saturday night if they have any grade lower than a C or they have any missing assignments. There are no excuses for missing assignments. I don't care who you are. So, and they have an online learning system, and we check that system regularly. And so we are their signal. I'm like, honey, text Ellie. She's got a D going on in math. So he texts her, and then she freaks out and goes and gets her math assignments in. And so as they get older, we change that. We say, you know, once you hit your sophomore year, we don't check on you anymore. You come to us on Friday. If you don't have the grade, it's too bad, so sad, right? So when we have our learners coming into our care, we have the ability as faculty members to say, you know what, I want to run an algorithm on the system based on certain elements that have been graded, and I want the system to run for me a quick little signal here and tell me how someone is performing or what their propensity to succeed might be in this particular course. And then based on that signal that is run, I have indicators that come back to me. So green indicating a low risk or something being good, the yellow indicating medium risk, and the red indicating a high risk. Based on those signals, I then have the ability to push out messages to my learners, okay? So again, this is something that the system will do for you based on a tremendous amount of information. What's going on Canvas, what we know about them. Are they a first-time learner? Are they a first-generation learner? Are they a non-US citizen? And then again, not saying how you're doing in the course right now, but just giving you an alert, you know, danger. If you don't take care of this, you're in jeopardy of not performing well in this course. These signals are then pushed out to their online learning environment or also to their email, okay? So this is faculty members being able to interact with students. Before we saw faculty members interacting with other staff members to let them know what's going on. This is faculty members interacting with students. Where this all comes to fruition and all kind of comes together is in Banner Relationship Management. This is a system that will put the student in the center of our world and then make sure that everyone is engaging them to help them be successful. So what do I mean? For example, I'm monitoring a list here of at-risk students. That's some, oops, let's see, I timed out here. And so I've created a population of students, and here's that population. There are about 50 learners in there. And I was able to pull this list of students from the database myself without IT intervention. It might very well be that I'm tracking on learners in a particular department, or I'm tracking on learners that have a particular flag in Banner, right? Whatever that might be. And these fall under my stewardship. I could be the department chair, I could be someone in advising, I might be in the student success office, I might be in the enrollment management office. There are a lot of different ways that this can work out. And your consultants will, you know, everyone always asks me, well, who's responsible for that? The system doesn't care, but you care, right? You'll have governance committee that will take a look at how those policies will be instituted. So here I have my list of learners. I can contact all of them all at once. I have a little email component here where I can freeform type in a subject and the sender and type an email to all of them all at once. That's revolutionary, sending an email directly from your system. But also that email gets tracked in that student record, okay, as part of their history. So let me back out of this for a moment. Let's actually look at an individual student, her record, and show you a little bit more insight to what I'm talking about. This is Barbara. She's one of my learners. She's been with us for a while. She's taken courses over a period of years and a period of terms. You'll see in the lower right-hand corner kind of a Microsoft-esque, if you will, little business card. In the center, I have some summary information about Barbara. And on the left, I have a little bit more detailed information. So if I'm an advisor, a faculty advisor, someone in the advising center, I have the ability to see her curricula. And one of the things that you'll notice about Barbara as I scroll through, which I'm doing very quickly, I know, she's actually changed programs and majors a couple of different times. So this might send off a red flag in the system, meaning is she further or closer to completion based on her changing majors? Why is she changing majors and programs? Is she just undecided? Is she not getting good advice? Is there something going on in a course that she didn't like? She didn't like a particular faculty member or particular content of a course? What's going on? But what I'm trying to articulate here is that you now have information that empowers you as part of that student experience to help Barbara, okay? So I also can explore her registration. Again, a tremendous amount of information coming from the student registration system and the ability to view term by term what she's registered for. So you can see here in spring of 2011, she registered for one class, but if I go back to fall of 2010, she registered for a bunch of classes, and she didn't finish any of them. Again, what is that telling me as someone who's advising Barbara? You get what I'm trying to say here? There's a lot of information in the system. Her academic performance. I can consider her performance in summary format. I can look at it by term. Perhaps she has multiple values with us. So maybe she has continuing ed, maybe she's taken some 4-credit classes and then undergraduate, class, however you classify those courses. I also can take a look at her credits by term. Additionally, I could see if she had any transfer credits. So giving me a full picture of what's going on in Barbara's academic experience. Here is where I see the alerts. So those alerts that the faculty members were able to put in, they don't just sit out there in cyberspace. I, as her advisor, I can set up a little watch list or a target list that says, anytime one of my at-risk students comes to the system with an alert, I need you to notify me. And it will be presented on my list. So if Barbara has something that happens, it's going to show up on my work list to do that day. I'll be able to go in and read the detail of what's going on for her, maybe give her a call in, maybe forward that task to someone else. So here I can see that she has late or missing work. If I open this particular alert, I can see this one was created by a staff member, and it says that she has a financial concern. That would have been really helpful if someone had put a little bit, oh, Barbara told me her father lost his job. Okay. I can also then add to the conversation. I can add a comment. I can continue this conversation. And we work this through to resolution, to where we're finally able to close this alert and manage that alert. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing how this can be really helpful. I also can see which student group she's part of, which events she's attended, and probably one of my favorite features, the ability to see all of the different emails and snail mail that were sent out to Barbara. So not only do I see, oh yes, I saw that you got this email, I can actually click on the email and see the detail of the narrative, just as she saw it. If I need to resend that email to her, I can, which is a far better example than just saying, oh, I saw that you got it on such and such a date. I'm not exactly sure what it said, okay? So really trying to engage those learners and making sure that they are successful in as much as you can help them be successful. Couple of things. We also have a concept of a communication campaign where you're able to say, you know what, everybody who has a registration hold, I need to communicate with those people. So I pull into the system the group of people who have a hold, and I send out a blast email. Then what do? Is I wait a week, I interrogate the database, I look and I see if that hold still persists on that record. If they still have a hold, I send them a second communication, and so on and so forth. We're trying to shepherd a behavior here to help the student be successful. In this case, a registration hold clearly can stop them from registering for next term. A parking hold, I've got a parking ticket outstanding. Don't even get me started about college parking place. It will not be pretty. But that's just one example. I also have other examples. Maybe I want to do some midterm grade intervention, and I pull a population out of the database of everyone with a GPA that's lower than 2. And I send them an email, and then I wait 3 days. And my point here is to invite them to an event. I want to invite them to a student success event at a common area. We're going to have all of our services lined up, academic, financial, campus mental health, tutoring services, childcare, transportation experts, get everybody on board to help these learners have a big event and hopefully get them back on their feet so they can have a successful term. Also, other alerts that you can send out, a canceled class, you also can send out good emails. We noticed that you made the dean's list this term, congratulations. And all of these communications come right here from your system. They can be branded communications, and people who are just a little bit more creative than me, with some help from marketing, come up with some amazing kind of templates that are used at our colleges all across the country. So you'll see that they have columns and references to our social networking sites, so forth and so on. So the end result here, and one of the things that the college is also invested in, is a reporting solution that will look very similar to this, where you're able to then measure toward retention outcomes, your persistence rates, your graduation rates over 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many years that it is. I've been privileged to hear talks from all over the state. One of my favorite thought leaders is Dr. Jack Scott. I'm always enamored with him. What a nice guy. And, he sold me a couple years ago. He was talking to a group of CIOs, and he said, think of the long game. What we do in our California community colleges to get students to be successful, to move them on in their careers, will pay back in ways that we haven't thought about yet, right? So he was specifically talking about considering a lifelong relationship with our students. From the minute that they walk into the door, first class, successful, hopefully get their certificate, their degree, go on to a 4-year institution, then creating a culture where they had such a positive experience here that they want to give back to their institution in the form of volunteerism, leveraging that social capital, and also with their donations to help this institution move forward. So as you're having some hard days during implementation, don't forget where Ted's office is. Knock on the door, complain to him. He's really going to get back at me. But remember the end game, right? Remember that this is the final picture that you're shooting for. I focused on the student and the faculty experience, also how some of us as staff members will log into those relationship systems as well. Just please be aware that every single one of you as employees will also have a rich set of services that you'll be able to also leverage. And I don't want to leave out Mickey's area of finance for those of you who have experience with the budget and have some responsibilities there. So a little bit of something for everyone. And Rick, that's your cue. Let me get you back on track here.
A quick show of hands. Who's feeling nervous, overwhelmed, concerned that they've got all this stuff in their head and we may not understand, we being the rest of the institution, may not understand, or that somehow they're going to not be trained correctly? Quick show of hands. Only 4 people, come on, liars. It's a big project. Don't be nervous, it's a big project. There's a structure in place. You've seen the ATAC committee. But below that, there are several groups that will be communicating, and below that, we're trying to set up a communication plan that is unique for our company, and hopefully it's going to be good for you, that sends out messages every week on what's happening. Here's something that is new for the institution, here's the impact, and here's how each of you will be impacted by these changes. And of course, training is the big thing, and we heard that loud and clear this morning. Concern from classified staff about, are you going to put me in front of students? Are you going to put me in front of faculty with no training or improper training? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to work hard on making sure that everyone is trained adequately before the first student shows up for the first activity. So, questions?
Yeah, this is a very comprehensive system, very impressive. Will it replace systems that we have now? For instance, Chronos. Would it possibly replace that program?
Yeah.
Is that a plan?
Is Maggie not in here, is she?
Maggie's not here. It's funny, because in contract negotiations, your lawyer, who I'm amazed my arm still works, your lawyer kept on insisting we have an interface for Chronos, which we do. So that's the side. Now we also have web time entry, and it's up to the institution to decide what they want to do. The California community colleges I worked with all decided to go with web time entry just because you could use it with tablets and some other things where you couldn't with Chronos. So it's up to the institution, and I think that project starts in December. Yeah, December. Do you, what is it? I'm just curious. What is the vote? Is Chronos good or bad?
Very
So it really doesn't matter then, does it? Old is bad, new is good, I guess.
So I'm just curious, then who's going to decide whether we're going to replace Chrono or implement Chronos? Because it should come from the users.
I agree.
We agree, and that is part of what the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee is about. There are teams, and teams are made up of folks like yourselves and others that are involved in that process, and when we get to that piece of the functionality that needs to be implemented, we will go through the applications, not just Chronos, but other applications that we have that we've been using. The question is, do they have a feasible replacement that we've already acquired through Ellucian and the Banner product, or is this something that, because it has other features and functions that maybe Banner doesn't have, that we may want to continue? So that process then that decision process will happen through, through this and through the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee. Yes.
And also too, it's just another comment is that, we don't mind changes. Just to give you a good example about Chronos, we don't really mind changes for me personally, okay? But the only thing that I have a problem with is the training process.
Exactly.
It was very difficult with the training process. And when we did have training, it was very, very basic. And among the areas, I mean, the area that I work with, I deal with a lot of student assistants. And whatever I learned from the training session was not enough. And afterwards, it was very difficult.
Excuse me, it was more than just the training. There was no infrastructure in place, and that made it almost impossible. I have 30 students working under me, and I had no infrastructure in my area. So that's also a concern of ours. We would like to be part of this process and give feedback, because it feels as if things happen on this campus and there is no feedback from the people who really are down in the trenches, who have to make this thing work on a day-to-day basis.
You are absolutely correct. And part of the new process that we have, that's a big part of what the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee is about. This is not like any other committee that has ever existed at the college. This group makes decisions, involve others in the respective areas as part of the process, so that when we make some decisions, things happen. Because we're implementing every week. Something's happening every week. So as we go through this, we will have those types of evaluations. Understand too, you mentioned infrastructure. I think it's a good point you need to make. We also recognize, as part of another set of initiatives that's happening on the side, we know we have holes in our infrastructure. We have pipes that need to be much bigger than the current small pipes that we have, so that traffic, whether it's data from Banner and other applications, or video, or mobile wireless technology, all of that has to be fixed. So we're running that particular project in parallel as well, so that by the time some of these features and functions start becoming real, that infrastructure is there. We also know that your desktops, a number of your desktops are old. Okay, maybe not. No, we know. And part of what we have as a priority is to replace all of that as well. And so we're going through a process to try to get those in place as quickly as we possibly can.
And recall, we mentioned about mobile apps where we're doing lots of sharing among institutions. Please suggest, because we don't know, I don't know, and I've been doing this for a long time, what are the best apps that belong on a smartphone. So please, while you're going through the implementation, suggest mobile apps. You'll drive Ted crazy, that's what he gets paid for.
How does this interface, or does it, with Canvas, which our faculty are all learning?
Good question. At the 11th hour of negotiations, we pulled out some products because the Canvas interface wasn't done from Canvas's side. They've got our source code on what they need to integrate with ours, and we're waiting to test that. So as soon as that's tested and put in production and is in, not in beta, but actually in full production, we'll roll it out to the institution. But we have every intention of doing Canvas through the portal and Canvas through well, you saw the student success stuff.
And will faculty have to know how to use Canvas to use some of the access there? Because all of our faculty are not using it.
No.
No, they don't. So just the way that it works now is just with other learning management systems. Banner is the record of truth, and you would do your course scheduling, the registration all happens here, and then what the integration part is, it would automatically populate a Canvas instance. So you wouldn't have to create all those sections again in Canvas. That's what the integration does. Then typically the faculty member, not always, but submits grades in Canvas. Again, that would come automatically back into Banner, being directly retrieved. So that's how it works with our other learning management systems. So that's what we would anticipate that how it would work with Canvas.
We're actually in negotiations when you switch from Blackboard to Canvas. We had all Blackboard stuff ready to roll out.
Another point that I wanted to make too, that you mentioned training. Part of what we want to do, and our objective, is to video all of this training so that we can actually come back and make that accessible through our own web. So that's part of the process. So that even though you may have attended a training, or even this session here, all of this session, that would be available via video, and that folks can come back and look at any piece of that.
Or if you don't use it, you've forgotten about it after a month or two,
right.
You always need to go back and look, make it part of the application.
Is there a question back there? Did you have one?
I had,
I work for the Classified Senate, and if people think that they're left out of the committees, then we'll be happy to take your name and put you on committees. We put a call out about a month ago for people to make themselves available when we were setting up these committees. So call Carol Robinson at 3370 or send me an email, and I'll be happy to put you on the list.
But the difference here in this is that even if you're not on the committee, there are a lot of folks that will be involved on the project teams as part of implementation. It's going to ebb and flow as we implement new functionality. You may be on this team working on this particular piece, and then you're on another team, depending on what your area of responsibility is and how that ties into Banner.
Yeah, there are fewer of us on a lot of committees now, and I noticed some of the planning you've been doing has required like all-day attendance, and I just can't get on those committees. I hope that you'll make it something that's manageable for us, where we can be on a committee a little bit, or that you'll come to our area and see what we do. No one yet has come to the Learning Assistance Center, for instance, to find out what we do, what our systems are all about. And we have several, like the scanning system at the front desk and all kinds of things. I'm just asking that it be manageable because we're all very busy.
Right now, as Ted mentioned, the Administrative Technology Advisory Committee meets every week on Thursday, 1 hour. There's a lot to get done. There's a lot of communications to take place. But frankly, when you have all kinds of committees across the institution, we really have to find ways to just be as productive as we possibly can, because after the committee meeting is done, in the departments across the institution, there's work taking place. There's implementation happening that really isn't part of the committee. This is part of the behind the scenes that those who are on the committee have responsibility for going back and making sure things get done. Other questions? Yes, sir.
But working for Campus Police, we use a load of forms. Forms that are internal, forms that go out to the general public, such as like student travel forms and things like that. One of the things that we have a problem with is we're still shuffling paper around. So I'd like to see an electronic version of student travel, electronic versions of other forms that we use internally and that go out to the general public, so that we can streamline all that and not print things out on paper anymore. And using just the scan features on the printers as kind of a start at doing that, but it still requires a lot more legwork for the user who has to fill out the form, and then the person who has to go back and then sit there and keep all of that in order. So I saw one of the slides talked about documents. I didn't know if that was particular what it was.
Document management, you may, in fact, Antonio will probably be getting together with you about what we can do online instead. Most campus security tends to go online with their information. FERPA, Family Education Rights Act, is key to our system, so that might as well use it there. Makes sense.
But part of what we also notice too is that every department tends to set up their own processes for how they wish to do things. Let me just use an example between facilities and IT. You know, if somebody wishes to make a renovation to something or create a lab, well, you know, facilities has their own form for doing something, IT has their own form for doing something, and getting the two pieces together is not an easy thing. We have that across the institution. So part of our process here is to actually really look at all of these processes and map them and figure out how we can actually set up an integrated form or forms and make them all web accessible as opposed to, you know, a lot of paper.
How does this interface with our current website?
Current website, let's talk about that.
Don't you dare shut that mic off.
Our website right now, however embarrassing that it is, I'm not going to mince words. We need to fix it. We need to redesign the website. We need to organize things a lot better. Part of our process is we're going to put a RFP out on the street to actually bring in an outside company to help us with the redesign, and there's also another RFP that's going to be helping us with the branding and those types of things. But We also need a content management solution so that we're not just so high maintenance in terms of putting content out there. We need content to be able to phase in and phase out automatically. Right now we don't have a system for doing that. And there's not a week that doesn't go by that I don't get a series of complaints about what people can or can't find with the web. But we know it's an issue and that it is a high priority for us to address it. Now, but to fully answer your question too, though, that's the web part of the institution. An important part which they went over was the portal piece. So that's the intranet aspect of that, and that we get started on that as fairly soon in terms of building it because it takes a little time. But then all of us as a family then go through the portal for finding things that we need and that'll all fit as part of the redesign effort as we go through it.
Just as another example, very often data that's already in the database can become a dynamically able component of the web page. So like the schedule of classes, that's dynamically searchable, it's real time. You can also choose to enable things like an employee directory so that when you as an employee make a telephone, on-campus telephone change or something like that, or you switch office, as soon as that's logged by HR, it's automatically updated into the employee directory as well. So some schools disable the employee directory, some schools enable it and really milk it for all it's worth. But there are elements that will directly connect to the web.
What is or what will be the composition or the representation on the stage then?
I tell you what, we'll make sure it's on the web. You can look at it, and there's names, all the representation that's out there, and then I can certainly come back and answer more questions about it. We take obvious leads for, let's say, HR. That's our new executive director. You know, certain key leads in various areas are on point, and depending on the functionality being implemented, will include departmental staff both within HR and outside of HR that are involved in that particular part of functionality. So the teams themselves and what happens each week ebbs and flows as work needs to get done. I hope that helps, but I'll be more than glad to sit down with you and actually talk with you about the actual committee. It has student representatives, has 2 students, 2 faculty, 2 classified staff, and then there's the leads for all the respective areas. There's more than just 2 of those actually when you really start counting heads. Other questions?
Currently, I get a lot of phone calls from potential students because they'll go into our website and it says open classes, it'll say 3 spaces available, and yet when they try to register, it doesn't let them. They call me upset saying I'm having trouble, you know, they kind of, like I said, frustrated and irate sometimes. And then when I check the roster shows this full. Are they going to be synchronized to show that when it shows 3 spaces available, that there will actually be 3 spaces available?
Yeah, and if you choose to go into the waitlisting area, it'll show if there's classes closed, but the wait list is open, classes closed, and the wait list is closed. We'll definitely enable it so that you can search for just open classes or search for all classes. It's real time.
And it's real. which was your fundamental question? Right. Another.
Well, I wondered if the reporting capabilities of Banner would be directly tied into our accreditation and strategic planning.
That's big time. And in fact, one of the documents we had throughout the demos, throughout the demo prep, throughout the even contract negotiation was Education Master Plan, Student Success Task Force recommendations, and we actually have an office in Sacramento where we work with both the legislature and the board or governors and board governors office on what's coming down the pike, so we stay on top of that stuff, and that goes into our products. We have a full-time staff in San Diego. It does nothing but create a system just for the California community colleges. So this is our bread and butter. Put it.
Anything else?
Does this take place of Chronos or Canvas at all?
Wow, that was the first question in the morning section. question that people don't like Kronos? We were asked when we were doing contract negotiation, can you interface to Kronos? Of course we can. Lots of our institutions do. But we also have web time entry. And I also found out during the lunch break today they use Kronos for things that I didn't realize we were using it for. There's some other applications using student IDs for getting into math labs, study sessions, tutorials as well. So as we go through the discovery phase, we're going to discover whether you want to keep Kronos or not, or use some other electronic framework.
What's that with Canvas?
Canvas, oh yes, Canvas is part of our implementation. Right now, just so you know, there's 2 products that we offer, the whole interface integration to LMS. That plus the course signals were not approved by, or they were approved by the board, but they were not in our contract. We're waiting for Canvas to certify. We gave them a interface requirement, and we haven't received it back from them. As soon as we do, we'll certify it works, and then we'll roll it out to you.
So does that mean that Canvas will talk to this then?
Yes. So, for example, if you have a chat capability in Canvas, it's all in one place. The student adds, and it's a Canvas course. It automatically happens. You don't have to have a separate sign-on. If you do grading through Canvas, it shows up in the gradebook and banner as well, all integrated.
I know there's a lot of community colleges in California. Is the Chancellor's Office using it? And does that mean that our reports for like CTE students will directly go to the Chancellor's Office?
We do all state reports. Yes, all of them. So, yeah, we have we didn't mention this, we have a group of people in our San Diego office who do nothing but create and maintain a special version of the banner system just for the California community colleges. So there's 10 folks down there, and they actually, and we also have an office in Sacramento that does nothing but track new legislation and new regs coming out of the state chancellor's office. So a lot of times we have solutions done before it goes to the rest of the institutions because they use our, I mean, with 82% of the clients up there, they use a skinny big solver. So we continue to do that. So on the other hand somewhere.
Other questions?
You're a much better audience. They asked us 20 minutes worth of questions.
Will we be getting rid of the escape system? Or requisition?
Yes. All that. Second that.
How is it anticipated that newly admitted students learn this program? Is there going to be a new department set up to just gather them in as they come into the college?
Yes. So his question is, how will new students learn?
This system.
It's self-service. If you have to train students how to use it, you've messed up.
You've got a problem.
You got a big problem. A lot of institutions, what they do is they actually put out, they don't publish the web, the URL, they just let it leak out. And before you're long, you have like 100 students going into it and then 200 students. And that's a way of testing those things. But you should never have to train a student how to use self-service or a mobile app if you haven't designed it correctly. Shame on us if that's the case.
We have an increasing international base. Will the system convert to their language, or?
We support how many languages right now?
I'm not sure.
Hundreds of languages we support right now. We're an international company, and they can choose which user interface. Now that doesn't mean we support, if they put in a major called psychology, it won't be psychology in Spanish or German or Croatian. But the headers on all the screens will be Croatian if that's the language of choice. That's one of the things that was in your educational master plan that we stressed during the proposal and contract phase about supporting this international education. Yes?
How will we be able to share information from other junior colleges? For example, I work in a assessment office. And many times students come in and say, well, assessment tests at Cerritos or not SAP, and test results. Are there going to be guidance?
That's the goal with the new assessment stuff that's coming out of the state chancellor's office. And I don't know time-wise, because it was optional for each college, whether they wanted to adopt that, as I understood it. So I don't know if it's this year, next year, or the year after that, that people will be able to share. It belongs to the student, and the student is willing to self-service, allow the institution to send it somewhere, just like a transcript. I didn't see a problem with it. Technically, I don't see a problem with it. I see more of a problem with the institutions all agreeing. and I haven't been tracking assessment, so I apologize.
So the students that have a balance, are going to be referred to student council for financial aid.
It's their choice. If they're a financial aid student and have a loan and drop below 3/4 time, where's Campus Star here somewhere? Things like that. It depends on the source. Do we give students money back if it was institutional money? No. If they paid it, yes. The system's smart enough to know. So it really depends how the and if it was a credit card, we send it back to the credit card. We don't give it to student cash in that case. So it's smart enough to know the source of funds for all transactions. Did that answer? I'm not a finance person either.
I'm trying to figure out the financial aid at one point is going to be separation of duties where the student council takes care of all the student accounts and not financial aid. That's what I was getting at. The separation of duties.
Well, you're all integrated, so really, I suspect it is a governance issue, yeah, process issue, and you would hope it would be mostly online, so the student wouldn't even have to check. They wouldn't know.
There are going to be a lot of those types of situations where we have to really look at how the processes that we're using today and what would be considered better practices and how we look to build those in as part of the process. So we got a lot of that. Other questions? Yes.
This is maybe for the student. What's the accessibility like screen reading or students who've got like visual impairments?
Yeah, it's
accessible.
all of the web pages are screen reader enabled, so that if they, if they're visually impaired, it reads off, and basically that's one of the elements that's tested before it's pushed out to the clients. So that's not even really a California thing; it's just international. They're all screen reader enabled.
I think most of these folks just.
Who's going to decide who gets training for what? I work at grants and I pay invoices, I track budgets, so I'm involved with fiscal services. I do requisitions for multiple areas in the college that have grant funds awarded to them, so I work with purchasing. I also have Chronos. Who's going to decide that who gets trained for each area? Because I'm working with all of these different areas and I want to make sure that my part of the area that I work with, budget transfers and all of that, that I know how to do that, and it's not just the people that are in fiscal services that know it, it's the people that work with them.
Part of the strategy that we're going to follow with respect to training is we really want to try to video as much as we can. We're not like sending folks off to places. Like 2 weeks ago when we had the 3CBG banner group conference, there were 16 folks that went to, or was it Wayne Park? This is how we have parts of our training that get delivered. That way folks can go to local areas, they can actually attend a lot of these workshops. I think a good bit of this too is going to be in your relationship with your colleagues at other institutions in terms of how they do the things that they do and who's doing what. As we begin to look at our processes and move things around and figure out how that's going to become a lot more streamlined, then maybe then we can look at who addresses what types of training. But we are going to try to video as much as we can so that it can be web accessible.
We understand with a tightly integrated system that it's not siloed based. You can't say accounts receivable just gets accounts receivable training and that's it. Financial aid impacts it, student registration impacts it, counseling might impact it. So we understand that that's going to happen. And you've got a committee structure that's starting to be formed that should take that in consideration. So in the case of registration, you've got people in accounts receivable and finance, even human resources if you have tuition remission process. So that is yet to be decided on who gets involved, but it is cross campus on all of these models.
Part of what we hope that happens too, that over time there become key leads in each area that actually conduct workshops for the college community in terms of certain topics. It could be a requisition processing, it could be anything like that, and there becomes the lead for that area that would actually conduct the training. And we would also try to video that as much as we can. So we're really going to try to leverage the technology in the training aspect as we move forward. But over time, all the areas of the institution develop their areas of expertise, and they are part of then how we train the rest of the college. Yes?
How about international student information management? Does the software provide the management of international student information like enrollment, demographic information?
That's all captured. So let me make sure I understand the question. How you support international students in general? Well, all of our institutions have a good number of international students. There are components within the system that pulls that information, including visa number and all that good stuff. And then, of course, you saw the FSA Atlas, which is an application that does all the federal reporting for international students as well. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we have the capability of doing multiple languages. There's that option as well. I have one client right now that is offering total immersion in English, but all their students are non-English speaking students. And their entire system didn't have to be tweaked at all. They just switched on the language for that particular language or that particular nation, and their system was supporting those students. Same, yeah, it's also in HR, we do that.
There's also pages to track student visa status as well, and federally required documents. And one of the things we didn't showcase here, but you have invested in document management, so you'll be able to take a digital asset, an image of those particular documents, whatever H-1B visa or whatever they might happen to be, and attach those to the student record. The other thing that we have done in Banner is we have used, this is way out of my scope of understanding, but basically we changed the fields so that they're more international friendly. So the whole construct of some Asian names, first name, last name, first name, also to take foreign characters as well. So everything does not have to be in English. Also understanding that postcode and just the dynamics of addresses. So this system has been made international friendly. I almost said internationalized, but I don't think that's what it is. So, did you have anything else to add, Antonio, about international students?
Well, I can just go into more detail, but basically, so like a lot of times in different countries, they capture addresses in a very different way. We're used to, in the States, you've got the street one and the city and the zip code and the state, and we never bother capturing the fact that they live in the United States because they live in California. But a lot of other countries have different address formats, so they have the house number, street 1 and 2. They don't really use zip codes, but they have a postal value type of thing, and so that the addresses can be made into a generic style so that it can be captured by the different formats from the different countries. So there's definitely support for and it is internationalization. Often abbreviated I-18N, something like that. So it's there.
When you mentioned that they also provide federal reports, are you talking about the CIVIS batching system?
Yeah, that's all part of FSA Atlas. FSA Atlas feeds through CIVIS.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have two questions. One of the international students, I work at the health center, and one of the students, they have their health insurance coverage. Would that be something that they could access through Banner, or does that need to be separate? Because I know a lot of times they have problems trying to access their card. So would that be something that might be easier?
So as a problem they have, of course, you require health insurance for international students, right? When a student is an international student, there's a whole funnel of documents they need that's different from a student from Whittier. Okay, so if that particular document isn't in, it's a red flag, and that student really wouldn't be ready to register at the time. In fact, they wouldn't even get their visa. So the system tracks all of the international required documents. including health insurance.
And those documents would be scanned, and those scanned documents would be available to you. You could pull it up and say, oh, you don't have a copy of your card? I can pull it up right here and see, here's your policy number. Right?
Yeah, because a lot of times, you know, they either move or they don't have, you know, their card goes to a different address, and then they need to go to a hospital or something, they don't have a, you know, so we have really helpful.
And when we say scan, they may choose to fax it in, and that fax happens to be part of the document management system. So it systems are automatic.
And then my other question is, we also have minors that, you know, attend PCC. Would their minor consents be in the banner?
It's a different admissions process, or their admissions type, and it sets up different requirements in this case, the extra document. Or if they're attending high school and college at the same time.
That's all part of the sort of the paperless approach, is that anything right now, if you have this piece of paper that you're tracking because it has all the information on it you need, the idea is that that piece of paper gets scanned and becomes associated digitally to that person's record in the system. And then you really don't need to have a paper folder for that individual because you can pull up their record in the system and you can say, oh, let's see what documents are attached. There's the minor consent form right there. Same thing with like your high school students, the form from the high school counselor or president or the parent. What classes they're taking, that's all part of the same concept, paperless.
Yes.
Is there going to be a bridge program to take information out of the legacy and put it into, so there'll be conversion of student information, and will the ID configuration change? Student ID?
We don't know yet. There will be an ID system in Cumberland Manor, but we don't know what. You can have unlimited IDs. I mean, I still get called up on my own social security number because when I went to school, they used social security number. Sure enough, that school which had a banner, I keyed in my social security number and my record came up, much to my chagrin. Yes.
In light of what happened this morning when we had this partial system crash, how often are your statistics that your system does not crash?
No, I didn't, but I knew about it. I was going to make a comment during my Santa Rosa statement, but yes. I mean, these are all brand new systems. Please understand that our existing systems that we have today are certainly near 30 years old, and we actually had to reset this morning, right before this meeting, I think, reset the system, and it did come back up. And but the new systems are all new systems, okay, and they should have very, very high level of performance. So we're very excited about getting some of these new systems in place.
At our user conference, I routinely ask the question, who has been down for more than 2 minutes the past year? People all look around, they don't remember. That's what you should expect. We're running under a technology that banks and businesses and corporations all use. It's pretty rock solid stuff.
It is.
Bring that up.
You're welcome.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I have umpteen subfolders in my mail, in my email. Will all of that be automatically moved into the new email system? Because I do that instead of writing paper for everything for auditors that come in.
Your Outlook?
Pardon me?
You're using Outlook right now?
Yes.
Won't change. You're still using Outlook.
Okay.
Zero change.
We'd like not to address that training issue. All right, other questions? All right, I guess it's iPad time. All right.
Got your tickets?
Shake it, shake it, shake it.
Blame Dwayne if you don't get called.
Mine. 327914. I heard the same thing last time.
Someone that got it after us.
Is 327914 here? Let's see it. That's too bad. So sorry. All right.
We got a winning number right here.
327888.
If for some reason you didn't win, we have a third one we're going to give away.
Well, one of the things that that I mentioned earlier is that we call our current system the Santa Rosa system, however good or bad that is. But we want to come up with a name for this as well, and so we're going to run a contest. We're letting that actually be handled by Juan Gutierrez's office in public relations, and so we're going to go through that process. There'll be another iPad available for the individual that comes up with the right name that gets chosen. Okay, so that's coming out. Should be done in the next 2 weeks. We want to try to solidify a name fairly quickly and then move on. So that's the third iPad. Well, I want to thank Ellucian for all the iPads.